Investigation order, members, you've got a copy of the agenda for this evening. Are there any changes? Hearing none, then I need a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Motion by Dwayne, second by Aaron, all in favor? It is approved. I'm gonna ask you, would you please stand? Aaron's gonna lead us in pledge this week.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lord, thank you for this year today, safe, and just ask you to continue to bless us through this holiday season, help us remember what the reason for the season is. We ask all this in Jesus' name.
All right, next item is the consent items. You have a copy of the minutes for November the 7th and November the 11th. Are there any changes? All right, hearing none, no public participation. Next item is the superintendent's report.
I will start off in operational and financial effectiveness. I shared some information with you about our fuel tank over at the transportation depot, and we got some things we need to talk and share with you there. We have our current tank, that we have our tanks that we have over there. We have a gasoline tank and a diesel tank that are 9,500 gallons apiece. Look, they are a little old. Chris, how old we think they're over there?
About 1985, before we
1985.
think they were put in the ground.
Yeah, 1,985 years ago, or
Pretty close to it.
turn of the century. So, as Randall came on, he worked hard to kind of keep those maintained, do some cleaning with those, and they are past their life cycle, essentially, and we want to make sure that we don't end up in a situation where the fuel tanks begin to leak. If they leak into the ground, that causes some major environmental things, which costs a lot of money. So Randall and Chris, we talked about this a couple months ago, and they've been looking around, talking to some folks. We put out an RFP to kind of see what some bids would look like. Randall talked about getting some larger capacity tanks that we could use over there. And Randall, I'll let you talk a little bit about the difference in having a new tank versus an old tank versus the type of fuel that we could use and purchase, and how that might help us out.
Yeah, there's some advantages to that because apparently back in the day, everybody decided to put 100% gasoline in their fuel tanks, and now everything runs on E85, and of course, the bulk of all of our equipment runs on E90. So 100% gasoline is not the preferred fuel. As a matter of fact, it consumes more 100% fuel than it would alcohol fuel, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it does. Right now, we don't have the ability to sweep or clean the tanks and convert that over. As a matter of fact, I brought some show and tell pictures if you want to see those, the damage that's done to those tanks that we currently have. Best we can figure, Chris and I looked at it, and so did the company that worked on our tanks. About 50% of the inside lining of that tank is gone. And why it's not leaking, I haven't the first clue. But we've not had a, knock on wood, we've not had a failed leak test. And that happens every Sunday night, and it goes on from about midnight till 5 in the morning. And so far, we've successfully passed all those, and we just passed our recertification on those tanks, so they're still there. I originally thought that our truncated timeline would be about 5 to 8 years. They told us it would be 2 years if we're lucky. The environmental impact that comes from that is monstrous. So having the new tanks on it, it'll allow us to dump the 100% fuel and go over to E90 blend fuel, which saves us about 50 cents a gallon. I think Tim shared with you our consumption on fuel and what we're doing. That's a significant savings over what we have. It'll also pick up the fuel mileage in the vehicles that we've got from that too. One of the other things that gives us an advantage, if we use a higher storage capacity on it, our fuel can be more predictable because we can buy more of it at a lesser price. But right now we're consuming a tanker load of diesel, and 4 weeks, tanker load of gasoline in 5 weeks. That's the magnitude of what we're running through that. And our gasoline comes at about 8,500 gallons. Our diesel is around 7,500 gallons. So our tank capacity, we have to wait till it gets all the way below 1,000 gallons before we can reorder. And we're using about 500 gallons a day. So if we miss the mark right now, I mean, it's a juggling act to make sure when we order fuel that it gets delivered the next day, and sometimes that happens and sometimes it don't. So it would give us a better outlook on when we could buy fuel. So we're not at the mercy of the market, so to speak. We'd have a little more flexibility on that. So is it a huge savings to do that? It would be a far more predictable cost on fuel if we could do that. But yes, it does save us money to buy when the fuel is lower. And also, as we add more buses, our capacity, it's able to reach out there and get that 20,000 gallon capacity on both tanks. It's 40,000 gallons of fuel above ground plus what's in the buses. We're running about 92 routes. Things could change and we would be 100 routes pretty easy. It wouldn't take long to do that. So our capacity to hold more fuel would be a bigger advantage. It would last longer. So those are the reasons why that we feel like if we're going to go ahead and change the tanks, we'll just up that capacity. And that I would think that the savings would pay for itself, and probably the payback would be 5 years. I would think we would have a good return on investment by then.
These would be above ground tanks,
Yes.
that last wall.
Right.
There's a county in our region that's dealing with not a school system, but a county government. That 5 years ago, they started leaking in the ground. And they're still not done paying for it, and they're at $1.3 million, and it's still going on. So their advice to me was, if you suspect you're gonna have problems with it, you better get them out of the ground. So that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, we chose to go above ground, because if we go above ground, then we're not under the umbrella of the Georgia EPD laws that are in that. So they're a lot more flexible. And as Tim referred to it, it's not a blast wall. The tanks are blast proof. They're double lined, so you'll have a tank inside a tank, and there'll be a filter in between that. So we don't have to put, what do they call that?
A berm.
A berm or containment system on it. We just use bollards to protect it, to do that. So they'll be about the same size as one of our school buses. So where we decide to put them, the two tanks side by side, we actually asked the question if we could commission our art students to come over, one from North Murray and one from Murray County High School, to paint them up and make them look like school buses. They said they knew of no regulation that would stop us from doing that, but they strongly recommended we got them okayed and approved before that ever happened. So once they're in and once they're approved, we'd like to probably try to do something like that to put a little excitement in our schools, a little healthy competition, who can make them look like a school bus the most. And they'll just blend in the parking lot, and it'd be really something that it'd be nice to do that.
What's the lead time on the ordering those?
27 weeks.
Yeah, that was the other thing too. They told us that to order those tanks, 26 to 28 weeks, and that's from the day that we commit that, which it works to our advantage for that to stall off, because then we can do all the installation after school's out and we don't have traffic on the parking lot. And Chris and I, we can borrow some of his parking lot and move buses out of the way till we get all that done. But there we'll have to dig up the parking lot, because they're gonna put in a new canopy, they'll put in 2 islands, and then all the piping will be underground, but everything else is above ground. So that works to our advantage unless they start leaking.
We've also talked to the DOE about site mitigation for future projects, and they were fine with it where they are. They want to know distance between school and storage tank, that sort of thing. So we got that cleared through them. There was no issue there from where it's at. So, you know, we're good to go.
Your question?
When we keep saying dumping it, I'm not sure what, is that, you gonna, does that mean you're still gonna use that up that's in there?
Oh, absolutely. We'll
That's-
use what's in it, but we can
Yeah.
convert it at that point, so.
What do you mean convert?
With the 100% pure gas, yes, we will use all of that,
Okay, yeah,
and then we'll go over to the E90, the blended fuel.
okay. I didn't know if you could mix something
You
into
can,
that to
those
make it
fuels,
okay.
it's not harmful to mix it,
Okay,
because we use, it's about a 5-micron filter that we use before the gas ever reaches the dispenser out there, same as what you were doing to fuel islands with. So, yeah, we would definitely use up all that, and the good part that we have right this minute, it saves us, I would say, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Replacing those tanks before they stop leaking, they can terminate those in ground, they don't have to come out of the ground. So what they'll do is they'll open the tanks up, and they'll fill it with a slurry, and then they'll decommission it right there, so. As long as we prove that we have no leaks, and we have an electronic leak detector on it that does that for us, so. Right now, we're good with that.
This project we really could have gotten probably last month, just to be safe, because we are pushing that lead time that needs to go out. Chris has got it out on RFP, we got a few more days.
16th is when the bids are due.
When, you said?
The 16th.
So this is where we wanted to share the information with you guys. We can wait until the January board meeting to vote on the actual PO, or if we get bids in, I can send you the information if we need to do it by poll, to do it immediately, to get a couple more weeks in, because we want to get it done during the summer. Did they give you a timetable, or once it's there, how long the project would take?
They were saying it would be fairly quick. The distance between the tank and the pumps is not that great. I don't remember exactly what, the one person that came, I've got one bid so far, but we still have Dave, I may get more, but, they didn't, you know, think it was gonna be that big a deal at all. What the biggest problem is we have to hit the summer window. You have to, you can't do this during school, it's not gonna work. So we have to make sure that we get that in that 27-week window, or we've got problems.
Yeah, we had to come up with a plan B, and we could do that. We could use a company, Caterpillar, help us use a company for our CTA trucks and our activity trucks that travel out of town. We use Ride Express. We can go ahead and have those set up where they're tax exempt, and we don't pay road use tax on those. But those cards, if we order that, we gotta order a card for every bus. And it takes weeks to do that. But the minute our tanks fail out, then we have to notify the Georgia EPD, and the tanks at that point, they stop. You can't dispense another gallon out of it, so. Are we in danger of that happening tomorrow? I don't think so. I don't think so. But now, the damage that came out of those tanks was pretty significant. So, I've got those pictures, I'll just let y'all look at them.
Just for sake of kind of knowing the ballpark we're talking about, the comparative price that we've seen before was between $500,000 and $600,000. I think it's $549,000. We'll see what bids we get in. This does fall within the SPLOST language that we could use, the excess SPLOST we have there to pay for these.
What you're looking at when you look at this picture here, there's some scaling right here. That's about 1/4 of an inch thick. Some of the scale coming out of it was about 3/8. The tank is only a 1/2 inch thick. So what you have between the dirt and the debris that came out of that, that's what you're looking at. So when they go in to scrub the tank, they have an apparatus that goes in, or mechanical tools that go in and scrape the tank, scrape the walls and the top. And then they use the fuel inside of it to rinse it and clean it, and then they start pumping and filtering fuel when they put it back in. And all this stuff comes out of it when they do that, so. Tank is relatively free of all that debris right this second. But when you loosen all that up, that's when you start crossing your fingers that, you know what, we didn't open something up. You know, like ripping the Band-Aid off, it's either gonna bleed or it ain't. So we're pretty hopeful. So far, we haven't had no issues with that. So the first spell when I had, I almost panicked till I found out at the test, the time jumped on our testing system on it, and they were pumping fuel out in the morning when it was going to a leak test on it. So, no, they don't take fuel out when it's testing. So when it does that, it starts testing it every hour on the hour, and it'll continue that for about 36 hours till it finally passes. So, but if you get in there in the morning when they start fueling, yeah, that's not a good thing to happen. So,
Cause a little heart problems there.
yeah, if they come out and said, hey, Randall, we'll recalibrate that, you can't be pumping fuel out of that, so there you go. But you get these field trips that are late night, and some of them come back after midnight, and they fuel up, and, oh yeah, that's not good. But it happens, so. But right now, we've not had a consistent failure, so we're still, as long as we register 2 passes a month, we're good. So, and we've consistently done that, so it's not a problem so far.
So we'll inform you guys as soon as we get the bid process closed and see what the best bid is. Hopefully we get more than one, just to look at it, and we can let you know when that is, and we'll just have a quick turnaround. We see when it comes in, you can wait until that first meeting and take care of it then. But you know, with that, something that expensive, there's the 2-week policy we normally have, which you guys have waived in the past if we needed to. It's just timely, and something we need to move on as quick as we can to get it in so we can do it this summer. So, you have any more questions about the?
Let me ask something, you said earlier something, if I understood you correctly, if the leak was detected, you'd have to stop pumping out of it.
We have to notify the Georgia EPD, and then they send an inspector up to look at it. So once they do that, then they'll run it through a series of tests. If they can get it to pass in that, then we can continue to use it. But if it does not pass, then they'll close it right then.
Okay.
They come and take it out of service. I can't do that. I can only put it back in service.
Correct. So if that were to happen, God forbid that it happen, well, I'm assuming we have a backup plan.
Well, right this
I mean,
moment,
if you can't pump anything out, then, you know, the bus, if I'm understanding this correctly, bus has gotta run, so
That's correct.
if you can't pump anything else, we have a backup plan, I'm assuming.
that's correct.
Okay.
The
I just wanna make
fortunate, the best thing about this, the most damage that we've seen is in the gasoline tank, not the diesel tank, okay? The diesel tank has its own particular issues with it. All the fuel tanks. The Georgia EPD puts a 25-year moratorium on that tank. At 25 years, they want it out of the ground and gone or replaced. That's your timeline on it, and we're well past that. So even the newer stuff now, they've rolled that back to 15 years. So it's not very advantageous to put it under the ground if they put you under that kind of a timeline on it, especially the investment that you would make in that. So, and the tanks are probably the most expensive thing that we're gonna do. Now, we have dotted the i's and crossed the t's for the double walled tanks so that they are blast proof. Yeah, you can park right against them and there's no danger in that, have anything happening inside that tank. So, we're confident with that. So our distances from the office and the houses down there, all that's been signed off on.
When you said, how long a lifespan do these new tanks have?
Well, that's the thing, is they can be maintained from the outside
Okay,
and the inside on. So they're still at the 25-year mark.
okay.
And now, as long as you do constant inspections, as long as you do the constant sweeps on, I don't know how long it had been when I got here. That's just something you do to maintain tanks. So I called in companies that came in. It's a little expensive to do that, but it lets you know where you're at. And these people, they're the ones that kind of helped me and Chris put a date on it, because some of them were involved in the original installation on it. And the best they can say is about 84, 85. And they said they're way past what they're supposed to be. So actually, the system has done pretty well on that, if you want to know the truth. without it leaking. But like Chris said, it's better to replace it now than trust me, $500,000 or $600,000, that is not what I wanted to do. I need buses, we need education, we need other things that spend money on besides that. That is not something that we absolutely expected to do. We knew it was gonna be somewhere in the future, but not like this. So it was pretty disturbing when I had that done in September. It was not what I was looking for. So, y'all got anything else?
Thank you, guys.
Next up, Dr. Smith, our financial report.
I only got one PO for tonight, so this should go pretty quickly. I appreciate the coffee, Rita, made me feel
I know
better.
what's wrong, I just,
We'll just alternate between the two of us. The SPOS outline is where we'll start. We're looking at November collections compared to the last three previous years. So back in November of '21, we had collections of around $599,000. November of '22, those collections increased to $667,000. November of '23, this time last year, it was around $504,000. And this month, or this November collections for '24 have come in at $564,000. So we had a slight increase over this time last year, and it's running about what it had been previously, except for that 1 year in '22. Total collections are around 16 million, and we should anticipate maybe we've got about 12 more months of collections. It should cap out about this time next year.
the question, who gives us this, does Village Childers bring us a check for this much money? Where does it come from?
It's deposited straight from DOE into the Georgia Fund 1 account we have that we keep in there. Comes straight from the
I just
Department of Ed,
wondered.
or from, from not Department of Ed, but it comes straight from the state, straight into our Georgia Fund 1 account. Right, next we have keeping to that same format I gave you last month. So I'm gonna start with what the actuals are on as of the end of October. So, on our revenues, we've collected around 15 million, about 19%, almost 20% in revenues. These are actual numbers. When you compare that to our actual expenditures, the expenditures are running, or have run, as of the end of October, around 17 million, around 22%. So that gives us a deficit at the end of October of around 1.9, almost $2 million. So as we go through the year, we'll continue hopefully to see the deficit go down some. It be comparable, we hope, to around the 1.5 million that was in the budget. So these are actuals, 15 million as of the end of October in revenues, 17 million in expenditures, so that gave us the deficit about 1.9. Now, when you add to it this next set of financials, the next set of the financials first it looks at our cash. So it compares cash of this year to cash of last year, which is a little bit, a little bit lower, and we know that we anticipated that with our projects and paying out our projects and getting reimbursed for those projects. So we anticipated the cash to be down a little bit. You can see that purchase orders compared to last year are significantly less, but that one large purchase order that was in there was for buses. So we had purchase orders sitting there for buses, which makes up the difference, a lot of that difference between the 2.6 million and the 252,000. When when we get down here to the next page, what we're doing is we're taking the actuals that we just talked about, the 15 and the 17, and we're adding on top of that the anticipated revenue from QBE that we're gonna have for those summer payrolls. And then on the expenditure side, we're gonna take out the summer payrolls anticipated expense. So that gives us an idea of what this would look like if we had to pay those payrolls right now. So we would have revenues of around 22 million. And if you compare that to this time last year, we had about 30% in revenues compared to about 26, and that makes sense because you've got more QBE money than you would have gotten last year. And then we go down and we look at expenditures. And expenditures would be around 26 million when we add those extra payrolls in there, which is around 33%. And if you compared it to what it would have been last year, it was around 33%. So even though our expenditures are more than they were last year, this time last year, it equates out percentage-wise because of your budget. It's 33% of the anticipated expenditure budget. So when you look at what would the deficit be now with those anticipated expenditures added in there, it increases the budget up to about $3.1 million. But if you look at it compared to what it was last year, it's around $5.9 million. And the difference being is those additional expenditures, those $2 million worth of POs we had out there, okay? So every time that we're talking about the financials, we're looking at what we're actually having versus what we could be having at this time with those payrolls included, okay? That's the way we've always looked at it. So you're running around $3.1 million right now in deficit compared to the 1.5 that we anticipated we might have at the end of the year. The difference being whatever revenues we have that come in and whatever expenditures that we can lessen will make the difference of whether we end up at 3.1 or we end up at 1.5. We either have to have more revenue or we have to have less expenditures to make up that difference. Any questions on that?
I still like to know, where does that money go that we get from the tax commissioner? Where does that, when he writes us a check, where does that money go?
It is in revenues under our tax, the money that we get on the property taxes goes into local revenues, property and ad valorem taxes. That very top line right there.
That says,
So as of the end of October, we've received $2.6 million. Right
Let's
here.
see, we've got accruals.
I'm on the wrong page.
Back to the very first one.
Okay, all right, so that's where,
That's
he
where that,
writes a check, it goes right in that account right there.
yes, yes.
Okay.
Okay, so we just received the largest tax check. So you're.
That's why I was asking, that I heard.
So it will
But it ain't
actually,
on that,
huh?
it's not on that
It's
yet.
not on this. No, you will see it in,
It ain't in
it will be showing up, because we're always running a month behind, so next month we'll be talking about November, so it'll be February before you see the actual check hitting the financials that you're seeing. It's in our books.
Okay,
We have the money,
but, yeah,
you're just not seeing it on paper yet.
okay.
But it was around, it was over $4 million.
So we're talking maybe through the lean months where it gets kind of tough with that, so
Right,
everybody got paid, so we're good.
right. It helps when we start getting the check. Any more questions on that? The last thing that we have on these financials, the end of October October, we got around $9,800 worth of interest on our cash. Got about $2.5 million, and then sitting in the Georgia Fund 1, we collected around $37,000 in interest this year, and $411,000 total since we started investing. So that is all that I have on the financial part of it, and I think you only have one purchase order, and that is for Chatsworth Elementary switchgear replacement. And it'll be a lead time of what, till summertime?
It'll be summertime before they can actually put it in, yes.
Yeah. So as Chris is going around tearing up stuff, he came across this, and this is one of those switch gears. If you remember, we had to replace the one down here at their enrollment center, and I think we had to replace one more.
No, the one at ALC is the only one we've had to do totally.
Yeah, and now this is our second one.
That's correct.
Yeah.
We talked about this originally back, it's been a few months ago.
It's been months ago, because it had a 10 or 11 month lead time on it. Long time to get it.
And we are taking this out of excess SPOS money. When you see code 345 and the construction fund up at the top, then that's coming out of excess SPOS. Okay? Same place we're talking about taking the tanks from.
I got a question on FYI, blue line. What's the estimated return on that?
The magic, I think this is coming from federal programs. It's Magic School.
No.
No?
Chocolate bars.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
What is it?
You buy them for how much and how much do you sell them for? You buy them for how much and how much do you sell them for?
Get half profit, we sell for $1, buy for $1.
There you go.
So 50%.
Okay. Sorry, I was looking at the,
You wanna buy some, boy?
He's gonna buy all of them.
They're good, especially They are.
you have to get there early to get home.
Yeah.
No, we have boxes of them.
There you go. Oh my God. That was smart.
Thank you, Appreciate that. All right, next up, we've got a field trip, an overnight field trip there, combined with North Murray and Murray. It's a senior trip, doing some things down at Disney World. And so, yeah, they talked about it right now, we've got those kids. There's something handwritten in there we had to adjust, the number of kids, so you see that.
But there's only 10 from Murray County?
Since this is not like spring break or whatever, I mean, during school weeks, I'm assuming all these seniors are okay as far as academically, on time to graduate, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that?
They said they worked it out, and they should be good to go, so I assume they're not gonna take any that are in danger
Okay.
of struggling or anything.
But it's not, it's a learning experience.
It's a,
Oh,
what's it
okay.
See?
Yeah,
Behind the scenes.
okay,
Yeah.
all right.
And they'll learn how much that costs.
Yeah, they need to learn, yeah.
Okay.
They're gonna learn
Real-
it's not
real
the
world
heaviest weights on
economics.
our.
That's your story.
It's the weights on our.
Because of dual enrollment spring break.
Yes.
Like my son can go because now he's a Dalton State student. And now he gets to go because it's Dalton State spring break. So I think that's why it's during the school year.
Oh,
You're
okay.
not- If that helps.
Okay. I need a motion to go into executive session. Motion by Aaron, second by Brandon, I'll give that to you. All in favor? We're in executive session.